It was on a cold, grey afternoon when Martin Grimsley arrived at the address, a squat, dark building slouched behind a decaying iron gate. The house seemed to exhale an air of dreary permanence, like it had existed far too long, accumulating the dust and shadows of forgotten decades. Martin paused, the cloying mist wrapping around him as he surveyed the narrow windows, peering out like dark, suspicious eyes. The journey here had been a curious one. A letter unsigned had arrived at his flat only a week prior, detailing a set of obscure instructions that led him to this bleak outpost on the edge of the town of Lockwood. The message had a simple, chilling proposition. Your services are needed to uncover what was hidden at 23 Drayton Lane. And below that, there are things older than memory in the walls. Martin, a collector of antique books and bizarre artifacts, had been intrigued. This invitation, shrouded in anonymity and ominous overtones, beckoned him like a morbid siren. With a hesitant breath, he pushed open the door. It creaked open reluctantly, as if resisting his entry, and immediately a thick, musty scent seeped out, a pungent cocktail of rotting wood, old leather, and a hint of something sharp and metallic. The house was silent, save for the faint scratching sound that seemed to come from the walls. He stepped inside, letting the heavy door close behind him with a soft click. The house was sparse, every room empty save for a few pieces of furniture draped in sheets, their shapes suggesting strange configurations beneath. But it was the walls that unsettled him most. They seemed unusually thick, even for a building of this age, and he could swear they leaned inward ever so slightly, like they were encroaching, tightening the space around him. He traced his hand along the wallpaper, the faded damask pattern peeling like old skin, revealing patches of raw plaster beneath. His fingers brushed over something rough and sticky. His hand recoiled, and in the dim light he could see it was a smudge of something dark and viscous, dried to a crusty film. Then he saw it. A door at the end of the hall, half hidden behind an old mirror tilted at a grotesque angle. As he approached, he noticed that this door was not like the others. Its frame was a crude, heavy thing, slightly warped, and the wood had deep, raw gouges in it, as if something had clawed to be let out, or in. Curiosity gripped him. He reached out and turned the knob. The door creaked open, and a narrow staircase spiraled down into the blackness below. The air that rushed up from it was colder, sharp with a dampness that clung to his lungs. Without thinking, Martin flicked on his flashlight and began his descent, the light slicing through the darkness, illuminating walls that felt close and damp, beads of condensation glistening on their surface. At the bottom of the stairs, he found himself in a stone chamber, bare, with only a single small table at its center. On the table lay a book, bound in cracked leather and scrawled with a foreign script that slithered across the cover in curling, cryptic letters. Next to it, a single candle burned, its flame flickering erratically as if disturbed by some invisible breath. Martin reached for the book, his fingers brushing over its cold surface. The title was in a language he didn't recognize, but it stirred a sense of unease deep within him, as if he were somehow already familiar with its contents. And then, faintly, he heard it. A voice. A whisper barely audible but unmistakably there, coming from within the walls. It murmured in a language that sent a chill down his spine, its syllables guttural and hollow. But as he listened, the words shifted, becoming clear, forming a message that felt like it was seeping directly into his mind. We are buried in the walls, we are buried and we are watching. A shudder ran through him. He staggered back, dropping the book, and as he did, He saw something shift on the far wall. A bulge, like something pressing from the other side, stretched the surface, pushing against the stone in grotesque contours that resembled a face. It twisted, as if struggling to break free, its eyeless sockets sinking into the wall as the mouth stretched wide in a silent scream. The walls began to hum, a low, throbbing sound, and suddenly Martin understood. This house wasn't simply haunted, it was a prison, a place where things had been bound, kept locked away by some force that was now weakening. He looked back at the staircase, his only route of escape, but it had vanished, replaced by a smooth, unbroken wall. Panic surged in him and he spun around, his flashlight beam dancing erratically across the room. The shadows seemed to pulse, shifting as the faces began to press out of the walls one by one, stretching, mouths opening and closing as if gasping for air. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of unintelligible words overlapping, filling his mind with a painful, pounding pressure. He backed away until his hands found the cold, hard surface of the table. The book lay there, open now to a page he hadn't seen before. A detailed sketch, a diagram of the house, filled with annotations in that same cryptic language. But then he noticed something chilling. The diagram showed not only the structure of the house, but also the tunnels and hidden rooms within it, each labelled with strange symbols. And in one corner he saw a small faded note in the margins. "Containment is failing. They will find a way back." The walls shuddered, and then, with a sickening groan, they began to bleed. Thin streams of dark, viscous fluid seeped out, trickling down to form pools on the floor. The faces writhed, mouths opening wider, as if drinking in the air of the room. Martin could hear them clearly now, their whispers forming a single chilling chant. "We are the forgotten, we are the forsaken, let us in." Then he saw it, the final twist in this nightmarish puzzle. His flashlight flickered over the faces, illuminating them in brief, flashing glimpses. And there, among the distorted, tortured expressions, was his own face, etched into the stone, eyes hollow and mouth agape in an eternal scream. The realization hit him with a nauseating clarity. He wasn't just a visitor here, he was a prisoner, a forgotten soul, bound within these walls like all the others. The whispers crescendoed, a deafening roar, and the walls seemed to close in, pressing against him, squeezing out his breath, his light, his very being. In his last moments, Martin Grimsley understood the truth. He had always been here, just another face in the walls, another voice whispering to the next unfortunate soul who would find their way to 23 Drayton Lane.